In this episode, we show over a month's progress from welding up the fuel tanks to standing up the window frames. There's so much going on, I can only show sections of the build. It's time to make the two 350 litre aluminium fuel tanks. Behind the helmet and the MIG welder is our good friend Taya. Taya mate, do you feel the pain?
Went too hard too early.
Taya will also do all the stainless steel work, the bow rail, fair lead and grab rails. Well, two tanks made, and we have pressure tested them, so there's no leaks as far as we can determine, but what we'll do now is set them up and leave them overnight with pressure in it. We get the pressure by this contraption here, putting air in through from the compressor. It pushes water up this tube, and hopefully tomorrow morning the level will be the same as the night before. The tanks will hold 350 litres each, so there's a total of 700 litres. So in the worst possible scenario, if the outboards are chewing through 2 litres a nautical mile, we'd get something like 350 nautical mile range. Hopefully the engines will be a little bit more economical than that, but we'll find out. In order to keep the fore-aft trim of the boat constant, regardless of how full the tanks are, they are positioned directly above the vessel's centre of buoyancy, which is at the aft end of the saloon. Once permanently secured, they will be covered by sleeping berths. Today I'm going to start the foredeck. Now it extends from here, which is the front of the saloon, to the bow obviously, but as you'll notice there's a curve that way and it's slightly curved fore aft, so we have a convex shape to account for. Now the deck area will be made up of, I think it's about 9 sheets of foam, 2 layers of glass on the bottom, 2 on top, and I'll be making them up on the floor, gluing the edges together and dog boning them to hold them together until the glue dries. So I've set them up on the computer, I've nested them, and this morning it'll be fed to the router and we'll cut those 9 sheets out. There's a big area where the master bedroom is here. There's going to have to be a couple of fore-aft beams with a curve, same curve as over here, to support it so that it maintains its curvature. Right, let's get into this. Oh, there you have it. It took 9 sheets of foam and it all fitted together. The dog bones all match up. So it's a case now of mixing up the epoxy and butt joining it all together, gluing in the dog bones and leaving it overnight. And Well, there's one side done. It all fitted together pretty well, and I'll leave it overnight for the glue to set, and tomorrow 2 layers of 600-gram Biax will be applied. The plan now is to use my rope and tackle gear to hoist the whole foredeck up onto the boat. With only one side glassed, it was rather flimsy, so 6x2 timber stiffeners were clamped to it. With more luck than good management, this tricky operation was achieved without mishap. This is the 246 litre freshwater tank. It will go into this space down in here, which is just in front of the saloon bulkhead. It's going to be a bit of a mission lifting it in there, but we'll give it a go. Henceforth, the only access to the water tank will be via a locker in the headboard of the double berth. Like the fuel tanks, once installed, you hope like hell never to have cause to remove them. So it pays to ensure that both their builds and installations are of the highest quality. With the foredeck panel precisely positioned, it was time to roll out the Biax and mix up the resin. The job had to be done in strips, and even with a long-handled roller, it was difficult reaching certain areas without stepping in the resin. The foredeck hatches had to be cut out to enable access to the underside of the deck in some areas. Tabbing these areas with fiberglass strips was not my favourite job, but it was a good feeling when completed. If ever there was a time to have a young and fit apprentice, this is it. All the underside of the foredeck had to be glue coved and tabbed to the bulkheads and topsides. Enough said. This is the fun part. At this stage of the build, I seem to be jumping from one task to another, and this is brought about by the fact that I have to wait for glue to dry and for resin to cure. I've made the steps going down from the saloon to the hulls and glassed them in place, and you'll notice there's quite a few other areas that have been built, glassed in, and awaiting the next stage. What I've got here are the dinghy davits, which will be mounted in the transom up there. So far I've just made the foam core for them, and I'm putting on one layer of chop strand mat, and then however many layers of carbon fibre are required to give them the stiffness that will be required. I've been assured that it will work with these dimensions because the dinghy that I'm using is not particularly heavy. It's only got about a 2.5 horse outboard on the back, and it's 2.7 metres long, I think it is. So let's see how it goes. The next job on the list is the transom. I've already glassed up the front of it. You'll notice that the ducting holes through here, the centre one, is part of the wing deck stiffener. And as you can see, by using it as a ducting, we can run the cables right forward to the helm. I've spent the last couple of days working on the transom, and it's all glassed in place. That false floor you can see through the bottom there, that will carry the steering cables and a few electrical cables between the two hulls. It's the only way I can get from one side to the other. And these two mini bulkheads will contain the davits for the dinghy. They'll slot down in there. It'll become clearer when I put the top on. The area in the centre of the transom will be my bait board for fishing, and also the stand for a portable barbecue. Fishing tackle will be stowed in the centre locker, and the two outside ones will house the fuel filters. Over winter, when the dinghy or the tender is not being used, these will be lifted out, stowed, and be replaced by a drop-in rod holder, just to keep it tidy. One of the real pluses of building with foam core is how easy it is to customise. This whole transom structure is quite different from the plan, as I've been able to completely personalise it to cater for my fishing interest. It feels like a milestone has been achieved when the glassing and assembly of the cabin structure commences. These are the side window frames, about to have their fiberglass laminates applied. These stiffeners, added to the base of the side window frames, are shaped in such a way that they add a pleasing curved styling to the vessel's profile. The corner windscreen mullions have a stylish roundness to them, so the router cut foam is kerfed long ways. That is, saw cuts are made in them that don't go all the way through. The foam is then tucked into the rounded formers and the exposed side is glassed. Screws are later removed and the other side is done. All 5 of the windscreen frames were router cut off the plans, including templates for the glass, and I was able to send CAD files of the glass to the manufacturer instead of plywood templates. That was a considerable saving in time. Well, I've got the framing of the windscreen in place, but I've still got to trim down the glassed sections to size and perfect the curvature along the top where the cabin top will sit. I've laminated up some foam to make the mullions to give these windows much more support. They'll fit in there, and the frames will be trimmed back to that edge. But before they go in, I'm going to have to laminate them. There's 2 or 3 layers of fiberglass to go all around those to stiffen them up, and then they'll be bonded in, and the whole front should be should have a lot more stiffness. And likewise on the corners here, we'll be doing the same sort of thing. The mullions will be quite a bit wider, but they'll be laminated up and glued into place. With all the windscreen mullions now glassed in place, overlaps and overhangs all trimmed and ground down, a stylish extension was added to the windscreen base to finish it off and match the baseline running along the side windows. And on that note, we finish this episode and prepare for the next, when it's back into sanding and painting and pre-fitting the dash, freezer and vanity.
That's all for today, folks.
See you next week.
Make sure to like and subscribe.